everybody? Welcome back to the Crypto 101 podcast presented by Gemini, your bridge to the future of money. It's another rundown here on Thursday, and we're thankful that Brian is back. Brendan could not make it today. We were going to cancel it altogether, but there was literally too much to talk about. We had Brian earlier in the week. We had some technical difficulties. We got that all figured out, hopefully. But today is a full rundown. Literally, even though we did it 2 days ago, there was a lot of news that came out. Price action, not much has changed. But again, if you're zooming out and looking at the runway of the fundamentals, it is quite a bullish. There's no other way to put it, Brian. It's quite a bullish start to 2026. I know me and you were kind of teeing up our sheet here and just getting kind of super giddy because there's a lot of fun topics to talk about, some unique stuff we haven't talked about. But overall, just, I mean, the last 48 hours, just breaking news for the most part, fundamentally.
Yeah, man, great to be here. Brendan obviously is cannot be replaced. He's irreplaceable, but I'd love to come off the bench. I love these rundowns because I think we're bringing some great news to the people and excited to jump in and get going.
Yeah, I think we can pull up like we'd like to do when you're on. We'll pull up CoinMarketCap to start.
Yeah.
Nothing too much going on there. We covered it the other day. We're still in neutral in the fear greed. It is not altcoin season by any imagination on the altcoin index. In the last 7 days, you're still getting XRP with a 15. We're going to talk about that in a second. Solana 10. Interesting. Dogecoin 14. So we've had some Sui at 27%. We didn't cover that the other day. That's quite a pop. But again, nothing too crazy since we last spoke. Pretty much a holding pattern, price action wise. Hopefully, we'll get Brendan on next week because we haven't covered the charts for you yet in 2026, and I know you all need that. So definitely tune in next week. We will have Brendan on. Sorry, just trying to make sure our live stream is up and going, and we are quite live. Let's push us on X. If you're not following us on YouTube, guys, you want to get in there. Make sure you can see the visuals on our YouTube, Crypto 101. And then also, if you do have an X account, I would say, Brian, I don't know, maybe you can help the people agree. Is it not the most fun X account on crypto Twitter?
Oh yeah, it's as good as it gets, everyone. They give me legit laugh out louds. I'm not just courtesy LOLing or ha ha ha. It is a legit laugh out loud with some of the tweets that come out of the Crypto 101 X. So that's a must follow. That's a no brainer.
Yeah, credit to the social team on that one. But let's jump into the news. So the biggest thing that I saw this week since we last, and this happened literally right after we recorded, Brian, Morgan Stanley loves Bitcoin. And, obviously our listenership is very up to date, not only with the crypto markets, but just the markets in general. They're smart. They're investors. So they know who Morgan Stanley is, one of the big five in the banking, more definitely geared toward investing, the markets. And Morgan Stanley is announcing that they're filing for a spot Bitcoin ETF. And then right when you're like, wow, Morgan Stanley, that's pretty big. That's quite a vote of confidence, if you will, for Bitcoin. I went and got a snack. You know me, like a little snack throughout the day. I come back, refresh my feed. Morgan Stanley files for a spot, Brian, a spot Ethereum ETF. My God, listen, I know you're thinking like, okay, there's a lot of Bitcoin ETFs. There's more Bitcoin ETFs than ETH ETFs. There's a fair amount of ETH ETFs. This isn't a big idea. This isn't that big of a deal. I totally disagree. For multiple reasons. The first reason is, and this one from Matt Hogan, friend of the program, is that Morgan Stanley manages 20 ETFs, but mostly they're under a different name of this Calvert, Paramedic, Eaton Vance brands. This will be the third and fourth ETF to bear the Morgan Stanley name, to bear the MS name. That's pretty remarkable, according to Matt Hogan. I think that's a fun stat, and I totally agree. I think this is a huge vote of confidence, and just that point there of actually putting the Morgan Stanley name next to it when that's not what they're known for as ETFs, I think is really telling at kind of the longevity and the bullishness. And then we have a part 2 of this whole conversation with Morgan Stanley coming up to kind of really dig in our heels even more. But Brian, I got to get your take, man. Morgan Stanley launching a Bitcoin and ETH ETF, or at least filing for one, and then hoping to launch it in 26. But the runway there for this to get approved clearly. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is amazing. And I think you mentioned the Bitcoin, you mentioned the Ethereum, and they also filed for a Solana ETF as well. So Morgan Stanley is buying up our bags right now. So they're ready to be here. This is amazing news for not just those assets, but the entire crypto market. And like you said, everybody and their mother, if you are somewhat know about banks or financial institutions, you know who Morgan Stanley is, and they're in it. They're in it. They're doing a Bitcoin ETF, a Solana ETF, and I believe they're the first major bank to actually file for a Solana ETF. So that's amazing stuff. And then after that, they came out and they're like, "Hey, we're getting into Ethereum as well." So this is just another feather in the cap to show that institutions are here, they're staying, and I honestly think they were trying to shake us out of our bags early on because the big players, the JP Morgans, the Jamie Dimons, the Morgan Stanleys, the BlackRocks, they're all in the crypto game, and we should all be paying attention.
Yeah, it's something that we've covered. And then just so it doesn't get lost in the news flow, we did see that Bitwise is filing for the Spot Link ETF, which will be C-Link. So just again, more momentum for altcoins in general, but the focus is definitely on Morgan Stanley here. I think that, Morgan Stanley, a firm that's managing over $1.6 trillion in assets, again, is just a brand name that carries a lot of weight. And it kind of can does it go right into, I'm trying to figure out how we want to talk about it, because I think the problem with Morgan Stanley is they've kind of been in the news, specifically not with Bitcoin specifically, but with kind of how they were dealing with the MSCI news around maybe kicking out MicroStrategy from their indexes. So it just kind of trends us. So like, okay, there's a lot of good news going on. Let's tee it up with this. Overall, this is all good news, guys. Bitcoin is seeing the good news. The ETFs are good, but what happened with this dip? It kind of all started back in October, right? With the biggest liquidation in crypto history. And I know I fumbled teeing this up, but like I think this is something that me and you have to talk about, Brian, because we're skipping around on the sheet. But if you're at home and you have a kitchen, you want to get out your tin foil, you can get out some tin foil. You get it, maybe about like 2 to 3 yards of tin foil. You start wrapping around your head. You make a little cone there, because we're gonna dive into this. This is something that Brian and I talked about with you guys back about 6 weeks ago. So there was a pressure window. Obviously, October happened, the biggest liquidation in crypto history. But then with the MSCI coming out, so October 10th, Morgan Stanley division, MCSI is a Morgan Stanley division, announced to propose to remove digital asset treasury companies from its global indexes. So this is coming from people that work under an arm of Morgan Stanley, and they're saying, hey, like, we might remove DATs from our indexes, and DATs would include Bitmine, obviously would include MicroStrategy. Then all of a sudden, that snowballed into all this MicroStrategy thread. So you have the biggest liquidation in crypto history. Now all these large indexes are saying, well, we might kick out MicroStrategy, which takes away its passive income flow, which again messes up the alchemy of what Michael Saylor's doing, all with all those offerings over at Strategy. And then it kind of curtailed this nonstop FUD with not only the crypto space, but with MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy tanked. Let's pull that up here. I don't have my chart master, but let's pull up the MicroStrategy stock. I'm going to share this tab instead. Can you see that, Brian?
Yeah, got you.
So here's our October. This is the biggest liquidation here. This is when this news came out here at 300. So since this news came out, it retraced down to about 50%. At one point, it hit 150. So it was 300. Obviously, there was, the 6-month trail doesn't look good at all at 57%, but 50%, it went from 300 to 150 in the time frame that this news happened. So there's a 3-month pressure window. And the 3-month, I guess I should go back here. The 3-month pressure window happens. Everybody's kind of linked to this news. Is like, oh, well, if MicroStrategy does get removed, that's huge news. And then there's all these segments. Is Michael Saylor going to have to start selling Bitcoin and yada, yada, yada? And then the winds change. Then all of a sudden the year ends and we got that first week pump that we covered on the last show. Bitcoin did well. Strategy did well. Just crypto in general kind of had a pump off the bottom. And we're like, well, okay, new year. Maybe there was that tax loss harvesting we talked about. But what was going on underneath the covers there? And then in 24 hours, everything flipped from January 5th and 6th. So first, Morgan Stanley filed for its own spot Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana ETFs. We just covered that. Then a few hours later, MSCI announced that it would not remove crypto-heavy companies after all. So it's like, again, it's not one thing that causes the price action. I don't think that's what we're trying to say here, but we concocted this exact plan that, like, when we had that show months ago, Brian, me and you were on the air saying, hey, like, this could be some people trying to pull some strings to get some price action down so the big dogs can buy lower and then turn around and sell it to you.
They're not getting past us, TiVo. We were all over them a few weeks ago. Our spidey sense was at an all-time high. A lot of these rumors, there was just a lot of FUD coming out. That's what it is. It's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and then it piles on and piles on and piles on. And we were talking about this live on the rundown, just like you said, that it just wasn't adding up for a lot of these things to actually happen. But the rumor of the possibility of MSCI removing strategy and the crash and the liquidations, it was just kind of like piling on at the perfect time, really. And it felt like there was some manipulation going in. I can't say that was 100%, but if I had tinfoil next to me right now, I'd have the biggest tinfoil hat you've ever seen on, because I think there's a little bit of manipulation happening. I think we're spot on.
Yeah, shout out to Weird Al Yankovic. That's quite an old school pull for those who don't know who's wearing the tinfoil hat there. But I couldn't agree more. I think it's something that you don't want to necessarily believe in. You want to believe in free markets, and you want to believe in just kind of doing the research and trying to get the right bet. But this stuff, I mean, it's a dirty game out there, man. It's a dirty game, and it just feels, the timing of it is, it's like, the timing of it when it hit, it's like, oh man, now you're really piling on like this. And we never got the answers. I was talking to Bryce about this on the end of year episode. And I don't, let me see if you have any thoughts on it. When that whole liquidation, again, the biggest liquidation in crypto history, happened back in October, everybody was like, oh, the bodies are going to float to the surface. The bodies are going to float to the surface. We're all waiting for the bodies. Then we played the clip. It was Tom Lee. It was, oh, I know who the bodies are, but I don't tell. I'm not in that business of telling. And they never really floated. And I was just like, hey, Bryce, like any thoughts? And it's just one of those things where nothing really came to be, which I thought was really interesting, especially in a time with so much negative press. So it's like, if nobody took the fall, you could, okay, you have to go to the store, you have to go to the supermarket, you have to buy a second roll of aluminum foil because now we're running out. So you'd have to make a bigger hat for this one. But it's almost like, was the biggest liquidation in crypto history ganged up on to like, hey, let's all liquidate, we'll all take care of each other, because nobody died. There's no funds, or there could be multiple funds that I guess nobody knows about, but nothing really blew up, which kind of makes me question what triggered all that and how did that happen. And then all of a sudden this news came out and it was like, wow, now you're really piling on. And then, oh, it's gone. No, we're gonna leave that in. No, we're not. We're going to take away that. MicroStrategy's fine. Oh, by the way, like the company that works for us, Morgan Stanley, is now launching a Bitcoin ETF. Pile in. Do I sound crazy? I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
No,
Do I sound crazy?
Where there's smoke, there's fire, man. And this definitely gave some major institutions an opportunity to cheaply accumulate some of the best cryptos out there. So that's why we talk about it all the time. We have to zoom out. We kind of have to really look at the big picture of a pro-administration, all this institutional adoption, and not get caught up on the day-to-day FUD that's being just shoved down our throat every single day. We show up in a bear market. We show up in a bull market. But overall, I do believe that these are some really, if you just zoom out and look at the key indicators here of some of these major institutions that are acquiring crypto, they don't want to go under. They're in this for the long run, and it really benefits them to scare retail, scare the public, and accumulate some of these at a lower price, because they're not buying one Bitcoin. They're buying millions and billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. So even a small percentage down is billions of dollars. It's a big deal for a lot of these banks. So it really, even though this feels very manipulated in my eyes. We have no proof of this, so nobody come knocking at my door because I'm not home. No. But if it feels like there's a little bit of manipulation going on, but then on the other end, makes me feel a little bit of bullish. Makes me feel bullish.
Yeah.
It's Go at it, baby. No, that's a tee up to you.
I agree. It basically flips it on its side. It's like, okay, well, if they're playing a game to keep this thing down, then now that the game's turned, it's like, well, it's turned the faucets back on. You had your 3 months of pressure. You had, crypto native people who've been around forever that are trying to figure out, how to get their altcoin bags pumping and back to all-time highs, or just have been devastated now for, a long period of time. And they've been waiting. And so you're just pounding people to the pavement. Now you're going to turn around and launch ETFs and pull the guidance of taking away strategy. So it does kind of snowballs into like actually making a bullish case for the markets now. And you can kind of see that in the data. And that was the title of this episode, is like, hey, there's a lot of data around that the long-term holders are back. So I'm going to share this chart here. And you can kind of see that, March, May, even the beginning of June, there was a lot of long-term holder accumulation as Bitcoin still was in the 120s into the summer and just holding strong. And even though at one point we had fear, I know we had fear at the later in the summer, Bitcoin Fear Greed Index was in fear and we were still above 100K. But the long-term, sellers kind of took over the market there in the summer. And then clearly, obviously, like we just talked about in that 3-month window into the end of the year, it was just watershed selling. But now here, if you zoom in there on the bottom right, long-term holders are starting to nibble. They're starting to nibble. That builds the thesis that you said that, hey, we might be feeling a little bit under the surface here that this is turning. And it kind of goes back to that. You don't want to be on the same side of the boat. Like at the end of the year, it was a tough end of the year. A couple people, people are throwing in the towel and they're like, I'm just going to sell this. I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, that's kind of the time where you want to look around. And that's why we do the show multiple times a week. I think most of the time it's fun. There's a lot of fundamental news. There's a lot of macro news that we cover and we love our listeners, but it helps keep us honest too. Because when we get too excited, you kind of be like, all right, well, let's see. Let's look. Where's the boogeyman hiding today? Is it under the bed? Is it in the closet? And then the same thing holds true when it's hard to make an episode twice a week, when it's hard to sit down and try to find the bullish narrative. That kind of makes me question the other way as well. It's like, okay, well, what could make this turn? What is nobody looking at? What is nobody feeling right now?
Yeah, I am under the radar extremely bullish right now, probably more bullish than I've been for quite some time. And a lot of this has to do with the most recent news and how it feels like there's blatant manipulation. This is not a price prediction, not technical analysis. This is just kind of like my gut feeling, which has led me right a lot of the time, especially in the crypto market. But I really think we're going to make a push for 100 grand here sooner rather than later. Not saying like this week or anything, but I think there was some scare factors, some pushing out some short-term holders out there at the end of the year. Obviously, some manipulation and FUD that it felt like. Now we're seeing that little blue blip of some long-term holders coming back in. I have my own indicators personally that I've always relied on, some family and friends, if they stop texting or if they're texting and they're all lining up, that I think we're going to start to push into the next phase of this bull market. When I say next phase of the bull market, I'm really looking at that $100,000 Bitcoin mark. I think getting through that $95,000 sell wall is going to be key. Hopefully we bust through that soon, and then we're going to be off to the next 100,000, and then we're going to all be euphoric again. And there's going to be bullish headlines, or these bullish headlines are at least going to be more impactful on the price going up. And there's a lot of catalysts here that we can talk about, and we talk about all the time with the pro administration, 401k allocation, staking, just so many. I think BlackRock, I read, added over the last 3 days like $900 million of Bitcoin and like $200 million in Ethereum over just the past couple of days. They're not buying to flip that in a week or into a loss. So I'm getting bulled up personally, and these are some great takes that you put on the sheet. I absolutely love where we're positioned right now.
Yeah, and one more point of Morgan Stanley, just literally hot off the wire while we're recording the show here. It's like, oh, well, the MSCI news isn't enough. We're like, okay, well, we're not going to take strategy out of the index. We're going to have a Bitcoin ETF. That's not enough, Brian. Morgan Stanley's now betting big on digital assets. Before we were going to take them away. Now we want to bet big. It's like it's planning. The Wall Street Giant is
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, like what it's like, what did we not get invited to some Morgan Stanley like New Year's Eve party where they were just like, hey, listen, they had a couple, they got out the Johnny Walker Blue, maybe the Johnny Walker Black, who knows? And they're just like, listen, we love crypto now. We want them all on the index, and we're gonna do spot Bitcoin, spot Ethereum. Solana sounds fun. And then let's tokenize that. Let's get our own wallet. Why don't we just get our own wallet? Like these type of plans, people. Sorry if that was a bad joke there. These type of plans don't come at a New Year's Eve party at Morgan Stanley. These things have been in the works for months, if not year plus, right?
Especially
So
when you
it's
talk
like,
about the holidays too. They weren't working over Christmas.
you don't think my New Year's Eve party? That's not how this all happened.
I don't. I think they at least had a couple weeks of a runway, and it wasn't Christmas time. I don't know. It's definitely adding up to some manipulation for sure. And hey, good to have them on board. Anybody from Morgan Stanley listening right now? It's great to have you here. It's
love Morgan Stanley. Like, would love to have some people on the show from Morgan Stanley. I think that's what we want more than anything, is like just kind of like we have with Bitwise and like we had Robinhood on the show. It's like we're early adopters to the crypto space, but then anybody else who's trying to come and build in the community, like I think that's our whole goal, is it's building this community and growing it and educating people on it. And so, obviously we believe this is the future. That's why we've been here, doing this show for years now. And it's exciting times, but yeah, it's kind of, like, hey, come join the party in a fun way. Don't be so negative and then flip and flop. It's we could all pull the old clips of Larry Fink saying, Bitcoin's for criminals and terrorists and this and that, and then now there's the Bitcoin ETF. So we've seen this playbook before. It's nothing new. It's just it's fresh, and obviously the price action was so volatile to the end of the year. It just had people asking questions, and now it seems like we're getting possibly some answers, at least on the positive end, for, again, that long-term view of BlackRock, Morgan Stanley. Like these people, or these companies aren't doing this stuff to then change their tune in 6 months. This is here to stay. But to kind of continue on to the data that you need to know, the Ethereum validator queue. I thought this was really interesting, guys. There's entry and exit for staking, right? If you want to stake your ETH, you can stake it, and you got to wait a little bit until it gets staked, and then you earn your yield. Or exit. If you want to unstake to sell, usually is why you would unstake. Depending on how big the queue is how long you got to wait. And then obviously there was a ton of unstaking in this October frame here, September 25. Everything happened. Everybody's unstaking. Takes time to unstake, and then you start selling, and then it sells to the point where there's nobody literally left to unstake. the unstaking queue. Basically they're saying the unstaking queue is collapsed to zero. I've seen multiple tweets and multiple charts showing that a validator queue has gone to basically zero for an unstake. And then as you can see, the staking queue, the blue here, has shot up into the new year. So people, again, if you bought the hype and you got kind of washed out a little bit and you want to take your tax loss harvest like we talked about earlier in the week, this chart completely adds up with that and the price action as well.
Yeah, you nailed it. And I think these staking ETFs and Bitmine staking, and Tom Lee's threw out some crazy numbers of how much they're going to earn just by staking their holdings. I think as we see that mature and develop over the next few months, it's going to really open more institutional eyes, more retail eyes. Again, like just another reason why, man, I do, TiVo. I'm telling you, I feel like we bottom ticked. I've been talking about chopping a lot, and again, we could take a small percentage up or down, but I really feel like we found this local bottom. And the bullish news that we're talking about every single week is now going to start to translate to positive price movement. I'm bulled up again. I'm super bulled up. I was a little bit wary in December, didn't really know where everything was going for good reason. And now with just seeing, I don't want to say manipulation, but just seeing how the news has changed so quickly and kind of how this probably shook out in the back rooms, I'm like, all right, it's probably time for Big Daddy to start dusting off some fiat and buying a little bit more of this spot because it feels like it's a good time.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we covered it really well into the end of the year. Again, this isn't personal financial advice for anybody. You got to do your own research. We're not personal financial advisors, and we all invest in trade in different ways. But I think one thing that we've consistently said is that yes, even though Brian is a momentum moneymaker, a lot of his stuff is in kind of a buy and hold strategy, right? You're
Yeah.
especially your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, and I kind of felt like after the October waterfall, liquidation event, I was like, okay, there's going to be more to go here, so maybe I should just sell and hold. But at that point, you're sitting on gains, so you don't want the tax. And then, so I was like, all right, that just feels like the selling felt like the same side of the boat. And I always like to be on the other side of the boat usually, or at least in the middle of the boat in the snack room. But so I was like, all right, I'm not gonna sell. And then it crashed down. I was like, crap, that would have been nice to save that. But at the same time, then you got to deal with the tax implications. And then in the end of the year, it went from like, oh, everybody wants to sell to now it's like, all right, yeah, I guess if you did buy in the 120 to 110 range, and then with Ethereum and altcoins, like, yeah, you probably do want to take that tax loss harvest. So then that was a self-fulfilling prophecy into the end of the year. And then I agree with you, man. Nobody feels bullish at all. It feels it's tumbleweeds. It's tumbleweeds out there. And like I've said this so many times on this program, we see you, like we see the numbers when the price action rockets, our numbers go crazy, which is awesome because there's people hopefully that trust us, that remember, hey, when there's crypto action, they want to come here. But it's also tons of new people checking it out for the first time. And I think we're so lucky that we have such a strong base for our podcast that there's tons of people that are always here. So shout out to you guys. We love you guys. But like when the numbers go down, it goes with the price action. You can see it. And then when the price action comes back, they'll be back. And that's another contrarian signal to watch. So I feel like I agree with you. There's some bottom ticks here that I really, really, really like. And the number one thing was, I told you, I think in the other episode, it was over Christmas. It was like, hey, I had my uncle texting me in May and June, like, hey, like, is it finally time? Should I buy some of this Bitcoin? And I was like, oh no, that's it. Like it's over. Like it's over. And then I made sure of a point. I made sure of a point to like talk about the podcast at one point when he was around, and like he didn't even care. He was just on his phone. He didn't ask anything about work, crypto. Didn't ask about Bitcoin, which probably means maybe he bought it and got washed. But I agree with you. There's a bottom tick here, and I think some of these signs of, again, the long-term holders buying. Nobody wants to unstake anymore, which is kind of a contrarian sell signal or non-sell signal for Ethereum. And then, like you said, Bitmine, man, Bitmine continues to stake. They have over $1 billion staked in just a few days.
It's crazy. When you really think about it, it's millions and millions of dollars that they're going to be earning. I forget the exact number off the top of my head, but it's something absurd. And I'm like, man, that's just a business in itself. I think
friend of the show, Tom Lee, is just taking it on the chin because he puts out his wild price targets. And credit to him. I mean, he puts out wild stuff, and we've played it on the show, and it has not come true yet. But again, if you go into the Tom Lee vault, you don't want to fight Tom Lee back in, what was it, 2017 or something with Bitcoin at like 5K. And he's just like, yeah, everybody should have 1% in Bitcoin, like back when it was at 5K. So like, you don't want to go back into the Tom Lee vault and fade him when he's talking about that stuff. But I'll say in the short term, that guy's taking some shots on Twitter, but he still shows up. He still tweets. He still does his press runs. Obviously, he's biased with, being the chairman of Bitmine and his company Fundstrat. But I think it's a fascinating storyline to follow. And like you said, once they stake this and start getting, it's basically revenue, right? Like yield earning is revenue. And, just one solid pop of Ethereum, like a, 15, 20%, 25% pop in Ethereum. Talk about a victory lap that guy will be able to take. And then again, does that snowball effect and get more people to want to buy in, more companies, more banks, or like Morgan Stanley building their digital wallet. Like they didn't announce what chain they might want to, put on their for their assets. But again, it's probably Ethereum. It's probably Solana, one of the two at least, if not both of the ETFs that they're going to offer, right?
Yeah, it's exciting, and again, shout out to Tom Lee because he was showing up and he was taking on the chin there when we were bleeding the wrong direction, and the ETH went from 4 to 2,500. So I think once we see some price action bounce back, I think they're gonna not bring up those days for very long. I'm excited for where we're headed.
Yeah. Let's see. Just to put a cap on Ethereum, 2025 was the second worst year in Ethereum's history, with only 3 green months. So if you're talking about per month basis, only 3 green months. You hate to see that. So we're gonna keep an eye on for everybody for 2026 to see what Ethereum can do. I think it's in my opinion, I think it's one of the most interesting storylines is actually Ethereum, Solana bringing real world assets on chain, and then seeing where these brokerages and big banks and legacy legacy financial banks like Morgan Stanley, Robinhood's not legacy per se, but they're definitely new age, choosing Arbitrum on Ethereum, and seeing where these companies are going to start going. I think that's the narrative that could be the snowball effect for kind of your next outperformer, at least for the blue chips.
Yeah, and then we didn't even talk about stablecoins. Stablecoins was such a buzzword in 2025. Is how it's going to change the entire legacy financial institution, and that's another reason why people should be very bullish on Ethereum. That's Tom Lee's theory. A lot of time is it's very structurally bullish for Ethereum. All these stablecoin payment rails that are going to be taking over and implemented this year. So again, there's no shortage of bullish news, and we were all kind of scratching our head for a long time why the price action was depressed, and then there was FUD, and then there was liquidations, but it feels like it's behind us. And this Morgan Stanley news, this Bitmine news, all this bullish news, I think is going to suppress over the past few weeks of choppiness, and it's another reason why I'm really starting to drink the Kool-Aid again, and I think we're going to have this really interesting first quarter of 2026. I really do.
Yeah, speaking of the Kool-Aid, a nice tall glass of XRP with the XRP Army would be nice on this hot Florida day down south. I thought this was fascinating. CNBC just started shilling XRP. I know that, it's obviously a great community, but I just thought this was fascinating kind of segment on CNBC. So let's take a listen.
Hottest crypto trade of the year is not Bitcoin. It is not Ether. It is XRP, the coin formerly known as Ripple, soaring more than 20% this year, becoming the third largest cryptocurrency out there. And there's big money behind this trade. Mackenzie Sagalos joins us now with that XRP trade, and what, Mac, is driving all of this interest in XRP?
Fascinating segment, I think, to have on on national television. I think it gives a lot of credence, a lot of love to the XRP Army, a lot of excitement. And again, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. It's there, the hype's there, and so I think this is the type of story that you could kind of carbon copy for a Solana, for an Ethereum, for a Sui, or for any coin that gets high end publicity like that. That again is going to start bringing not only the masses but larger institutions as well to double, triple down. And I think that's kind of the. Let me just get your take on XRP, and then I can lead us to like a broader conversation of liquidity.
XRP and Ripple, myself, have always had this very odd relationship because I'm not a part of the Ripple army, but they come out in full force, and it trades like a meme coin sometimes. And I love those momentum plays. So I have dipped my toes into XRP, but I've never looked at it as exactly what they're, because of the tokenomics and the holdings, and we can go on and on about that. But on the other side of things, I want Ripple and XRP to get attention. I want it to go up. I want the Ripple army to absolutely get rich, because that's only good for the entire crypto market as a whole. So this is great to see that CNBC is talking about Ripple. I still need some convincing to dedicate some of my legacy funds from the other cryptos over to Ripple, but I have a lot of close friends, some family members that are part of XRP, and they will go blue in the face defending everything about it. And I'm just like, you know what? I want you to get rich. I want XRP to go where you want it to go because it's going to be good for my bags too. But personally, I'm not a holder, but shout out XRP Army. Segment on CNBC is good stuff.
Yeah, let's hear what the back end of that was with the anchor here.
XRP.
What's actually been interesting is that during the doldrums of Q4, you actually saw a lot of people piling into those XRP ETFs, which is the exact opposite of what happens with the spot Bitcoin and Ether ETFs, where people really move in tandem with the price of the coin. But it was the fact that it is a way to have a higher percentage jump. So people were buying the dip with XRP in Q4, thinking this is a less crowded trade than Bitcoin or Ether. And that proved out to be true just in the first 6 trading days of January.
We've also talked a lot about the blockchains and fidelity for XRP.
Blockchain use case for that. And XRP made its name in terms of cross-border payments. But what's been fascinating is even just this morning, Morgan Stanley, which has been especially progressive in terms of having their financial advisors suggest that clients get into the spot Bitcoin ETFs. They were the first bank to do that. They're now just this morning filing an S1 to launch their own Bitcoin and Solana ETFs because there is an appetite there.
So in the world where Bitcoin has become a bit mainstream, I'm not going to say
Bitcoin's mainstream now. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know that.
Who would have thought?
little bit of fluff on the XRP segment, I gotta say. But when you're having XRP day on CNBC, it's something that you have to take note. And so we love the XRP Army here. We root them on, and who knows? Maybe we'll. The whole goal is that we can go to the moon together. But a team that I guess agreed that they're not going to the moon together is Zcash. Brian, you brought this to my attention,
segue.
so I'll pass it off to you. Yeah, great segue. I'm a professional, but hand this off to you for Zcash. Zcash developed. Zcash was kind of the belle of the ball. I'm gonna pull it up on CoinMarketCap while you tee us up here, because some great price movement from Zcash, especially in 25, right? But seems like there's some disagreement in the team.
Yeah, I just want to jump back to Ripple real quick. The Ripple Army, once the yachts get fired up, don't forget to invite TiVo and I. You know, just get us a spot on that yacht, that Ripple Army yacht. I'll do whatever you want. But according to Zcash, as everybody, if you're not familiar with Zcash, they're a major privacy coin. They do a lot of interesting things within privacy, and privacy coming into end of 2025 into 2026. AI16Z wrote a bunch about this, but privacy is going to be a big meta, we like to call it, coming into this year. So Zcash has been absolutely ripping. It is a legacy coin. I used to own Zcash back in the day, and it went up pretty nicely. I forget exactly what the all-time high was or when that actually hit, but it was moving, and then it was actually performing quite well up until this morning. And then we wake up and we find out that the Zcash developers had a little bit of a little tiff, and I think they're threatening, or some of them have said that they're going to open their own privacy chain. I honestly didn't even know Zcash had major developers working on their chain. I guess it's just ignorant of me not thinking that, but I when I saw that, I was like, oh, I thought they were, I don't know. I just thought it was like a privacy chain running on its own, and we were buying it because of the privacy meta. But this is very interesting that they're talking about opening their own privacy chain or a company after a little bit of a board clash. I don't think this is going to take Zcash to zero. I do think that this is a little bit bearish right now for Zcash, and there, there's going to be some tough times there for some Zcash holders, but I don't think it's going to go to zero. I think it's going to probably recover. There's some and this could be very bullish, and I've been thinking about this and wanted to talk to the Momentum Moneymakers community about this probably more in our newsletter next week. But this could be a nice little beta play over to like the Moneros, the XRM. That's another privacy chain. We talked to Momentum Moneymakers. Shout out to anybody in the chat from the MMM group about Umbra, which is the Solana privacy layer that was released on MetaDAO recently. And I think that has some very interesting mechanics to it and tokenomics to it. So this might be short term here bearish for Zcash because nobody likes to see developers leave and threaten to open their own chain. But this could be bullish for some other privacy coins over there. So, a little bit of alpha. I'm a holder, so I want everybody to know. But Umbra over on Solana, I'm going to definitely be keeping a close eye on it over the next few days to see if some of these Zcash holders are like, hey, we don't like this back and forth. We're going to go over to another privacy because privacy is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's across the board, whether it's crypto or the stock market, privacy, companies like CrowdStrike. I think CrowdStrike is one of the top performers in the last 3 years, just because, again, with AI, there's more threats, and with more threats, you need more security, and more security means more privacy. And so any project like that seems to be a bell of the ball, and I agree with you, is not going away. At least the narrative is not going away. And again, for momentum moneymakers, like Brian said, if that's the type of stuff, if you want that early access to Brian and Joe's thoughts, there's a $1 trial. It's the new year. We want to give everybody access to it. If they're interested, for $1, check the link below so you can get kind of the first alert for Brian and Joe's momentum moneymakers. We cover it all the time. Just some absolute winners in there. But don't cry for the Zcash family quite yet. Yeah, 1 week down 16% here, you see on the screen. But for all those saying when's altcoin season, I mean, 1 year after that 16% decline, 1 year. And I know we covered Zcash when it was flying high. I mean, this rip from, man, that was late September to
got to like 800, right?
November.
700 or something.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. It's 800% move there. So, there's winners. There's winners out there, man. There's winners out there, and Zcash seems to be forming a base here. So we'll see if we'll keep tabs on it, obviously, and see if this news is something that is more of a takedown of the recent price action, or just kind of forms a base, and Zcash is still a winner. But it's a good transition with momentum moneymakers to kind of hand the ball off to you. We were going to do it the other day. We ran into some technical difficulties. I was a huge proponent of the Pudgy Penguin action over the holiday there, Brian, with just tons going on.
Yeah, the Pudgy Penguin team is continuing to produce. I think the price is up a little bit. Whenever we see a big uptick with the majors, and the crypto market looks healthy, of course meme coins are going to fly. We saw that just recently. We talked about that on Monday, that Bitcoin maybe had a 5% move, but some, like the Pepes of the world, had 20% moves. Pudgy Penguins had huge moves, but they're out here continuing to just absolutely rock it, as you just showed a moment ago. That's a Luca Nets tweet. Yeah, what's it up? The last week, 32%. Let's go.
Absolutely.
And
that's the type of momentum we want.
Heck yeah, and show us. Yeah, I'm a big Pudgy Penguin fan. They're not just a plushie company selling $50 to $100 million of toys in Walmart, Target, and Amazon. They're not just an NFT company. They're not just a world-breaking Web3 company. They're doing it all. And what else they did is they paid about $500,000 to go on the Vegas Sphere. And at first I was like, how's that going to be? But I saw that thing everywhere. I saw people that live in Vegas, buddies of mine who know I'm in the crypto world. They were like, isn't this the cute penguin you're talking about? Flashing pictures of it. So it's cool. It was a lot of fun to see that they were on the Vegas Sphere recently. And then they also came out, the next link up there, they were at I'm a big NHL guy. So I was watching the Winter Classic. And I don't know how many other people watch the Winter Classic on New Year's Day, but there's Pudgy Penguin stuff all over it. So it's great to see the NHL embrace it. In the Pudgy Penguin team. So they were all over the Winter Classic Fest. So this just goes to show you that there's this integration between the Web 2 world, just the standard world, and then Web 3, and how something like a meme coin or an NFT project initially, like Pudgy Penguins, can continue building products, getting exposure. And this isn't going to happen overnight. That's what everyone needs to understand. And it starts to integrate where we're seeing it in clips of NHL commercials. We're seeing it on Vegas Spheres. We're playing the games. Before you know it, I think the Pudgy Penguin's going to be more and more recognizable to people that don't even know it's associated to a crypto company. I think I've told you about my son once in Walmart. We're walking around, and he grabbed one of the Pudgy Penguin toys. You can't see it on my back right now. But he grabbed it. He's like, I want this. I want this. And I looked at it. I was like, oh, yeah, it's the Pudgy Penguin toy. We'll buy this plushie. I scanned it, and I think that you did get rewards, or you are going to get rewards in Pengu, but he didn't buy it because it was related to crypto at all. He bought it because he liked the aesthetic. They're doing some great things out here, so shout out to Luca. Let's get him on the podcast here soon.
Yeah, that's a goal. I'm trust me, I'm working on it. I'm trying my best. I also was a purchaser of Pudgy Penguin apparel. I bought the book. I got the Pudgy book. I bought it off of Amazon. It got there in time. I gave it to my nephew for Christmas. He's a little too young, but he definitely enjoyed it. He said penguin, penguin. But I thought what was more interesting was actually all the adults. So you open the gift, it's a book, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" in the book, and I'm kind of explaining, it's my meme coin book.
Your uncle's pissed in the corner.
I'm just, and I'm telling them, I'm just like, yeah, like there's this penguin, but like here's what it was, kind of to your point of the store. They were all like, oh, and they're flipping through the pages. They're like, these penguins are so cute. I love them. I love these penguins. And there's something about Pudgy when you see him, whether it's on a book, on your screen, on your phone, or in person at the Winter Classic here. You just think they're cute, and you just want to run up and squeeze them. I'm sure if you saw him in person there, you'd want to run up and give that penguin a hug and take a picture. So I think that name another meme coin. It'd be hard to name one. You're our meme coin expert. That like during the downfall of price action and into the end of the year, right? The doldrums of the price action. What other meme coin was raising revenue, selling plush toys and books and Pez dispensers? And it's hard, obviously Rex out there doing their thing, but I think there's few and far between of the projects that are actually trying to, build a brand and build a business behind it. And my guess is that when the price action turns around, you get that healthy bounce of crypto price action. Yes, a rising tide lifts all boats, but again, you're trying to find those winners. So
and their game's elite too, man. You should. Oh, your nephew's young. I was gonna say you should get him on the Pudgy party game. My kids love it. It's a great mobile game. Like when they're just bugging the heck out of me in the car, I give them my phone and they're like, Pudgy Penguin's the game. And it's a really fun game. And just wait until they probably access some sort of flywheel to reward players points to tokens. There's a lot of levers they can pull to make this thing really take off. Now it's gonna be a slow cook too. Nothing happens overnight. We can see like the digital gold, the Bitcoins of the world, the greatest story I think out there you could talk about, but it's gonna be a slow cook. It's gonna be volatile, but I'll tell you what, we're gonna be looking back.
It's a slow cook until it's a slow cook until it's not. I mean, 31% in a week is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's gains for 2 years basically if you're just gonna throw it into the S&P and close your eyes and hope for an average year. So you get that in 7 days. That's definitely nothing to sneeze at. But just want to, before we continue on with Brian, two things. Number one, again, Momentum Moneymakers, $1 trial. Check it out in the chat if you want that first alert from Brian and Joe getting their newsletters. And it really is such a fun community. There's so many great people in there. Check out the link below. Give it a try. Also, shout out to the YouTube chat. We haven't gotten into the flow yet of planning these and promoting them. We're going to get back into that.
They're live right now.
They're live in the chat, right? We didn't even promote it, which is a testament to our community and how much it's growing. But, man, we got Blazing Bandit. We've got Blazing Bandit. We've got Smokey the Bandit. The bandits are out in full force. Zen Style 2.6. I know Grant's out there as well. So just absolute thank you guys for rocking the chat. And, yeah, it's going to be a great year of lives. It is going to be a priority to try to get those more scheduled and get more of the community in here, which is always more fun. But let's move on with whatever you take the show, you take the reins, I'll produce. Tell me where you want to go.
Oh yeah, let's go to the next one. NFTs have been interesting. They actually, when we saw the bounce in the crypto majors with Bitcoin up 5%, we saw some NFTs across the board. I get that the NFTs market isn't like what it was in 2021, but there's still some huge sales happening out there. Actually, friendly with Anonymous, so shout out, great sale by him to Raoul Paul. I mean, Raoul Paul's one of the biggest X-copy bulls out there. And if anybody wants to know who X-copy is, if there was a Mount Rushmore for digital artists out there, he would be one of those on Mount Rushmore. He's one of the most well-known, non-doxed artists out there. This is one of his. My Twitter profile is an X-copy grifter, and it's one of the few NFTs that I just grail hold. And I absolutely love it. So it's great to see that major sales like this are still happening. And Raoul, hey, he's buying it up for about $611,000, a one of one. Huge W by the seller, huge W by the buyer. And it's just great to see that some NFTs are moving. And we can roll into the next topic. I wore the rec hat for a reason, Tebow, because you know what's happening? They got another drink coming out. This was announced, I think, yesterday. It's a collaboration with WorldStar, the hip hop, with their cherry cola. So they're still moving. They're still getting major partnerships. They got partnerships with X Games, partnerships with all these, the Moon Pays, the Open Seas. This is another token out there, like Pudgy Penguin, that was an NFT company that turned into a meme coin, that turned on the flywheel, and now they have this meme coin to real world product that's actually moving the needle. I know their tokens kind of been flat recently. It had a nice bounce with the rest of the market, but now you can go in and OSF, who's the founder, actually said a couple weeks ago that they're just going to get these activations going soon. You're going to be able to go into a store. I know Giant Eagle out in the Midwest is going to be one you can buy a REC case, scan the barcode, and you're going to be able to collect REC tokens off of the physical case soon. I don't know when that's actually going to happen, but when you start seeing more and more people choosing REC drinks because they like it and because they can get like a meme coin or a brand token out of it, it's just disrupting the consumer world or the brand world like we've never seen. And huge shout out to the team for this major collaboration. I love to see it, and I'm going to be a buyer. I'm going to buy this. So I don't know if you get tokens or anything, but I got enough REC drinks now. I need to try it.
Yeah, cherry cola, man. And then World Star Hip Hop. What a collab. I remember back in the day. I mean, I guess they still got all the viral hits, and they'd have those taglines for maybe that was Hot New Hip Hop. It was like World Star, hotnewhiphop.com. Those were the days going through the internet and hearing those taglines. World Star. That's when you knew. That's when you knew the video was going viral.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's a great collab. So I love to see it. And, I love to talk about prediction markets. I think this is the prediction market super cycle. I mean, you can't even there's just every day you wake up and you see more and more news about prediction markets. Polymarket's CMO, I believe it is, actually doubled down and made more announcements that there probably is going to be a poly token. So even more reasons to just check it out. And we have a lot. We're going to talk about the next tab here, but you can see that there is a pretty big partnership here where they're going to launch real estate prediction markets powered by Parcel. So shout out to Parcel as well. Great news. And we've had like a lot of people talking about poly market, and this was sparked with Venezuela. Actually, there was like a guy who made like hundreds of thousands of dollars like on like what happened in Venezuela and the dates. And there was like some really well-timed bets here happening. And now we have some planned bills that could keep government insiders out of utilizing these prediction markets. I don't know, that might be tough to keep people from doing this. And then I saw like a tweet thread, I think it was Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, talking about how the truth is actually in these insiders. When you see these big
I saw that.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you think. You're like, yeah, you're right. Like they're just early in the game, and so maybe you don't like the wagering of the peer-to-peer of poly market, and I get that, but it's becoming more and more clear that the news is being pushed through these prediction markets, probably because insiders are just hammering it when they get an opportunity. But if you really want the truth, you look where people put their money. And that's exactly what these prediction markets are doing. And that's why we're seeing huge partnerships out there. And I think, go to the next tab. Polymarket even just
I want to kick around that thought, the Brian Armstrong interview, because I digested that at first. I was like, no, it's not fair if you have inside info, like it's insider trading. But it was interesting how he eloquently put it. And then I thought about it for a little bit. I was like, yeah, I guess that is right. Like if we're in this age, I ran out of tinfoil from the segment a couple segments ago. But if you want to say we're in this age where it's hard to find, good, truthful information, then the insiders are important. And being an insider gets you, again, if you're going to go gamble and make money on it, then being an insider gets you rewarded for being an insider, even though it's inside information. The truth comes out, and so like, okay. Well, why should somebody, want to tell the truth? It's like, it's still a transactional world that we live in, right? If you do something, most of the time you want to get paid. If you work, you want to get paid. So like now we're in this era where just information is everywhere, and it's, some of it's funny, some of it's AI, some of it's jokes, some of it's serious, some of it's misinformation. It's like there's kind of these prediction markets have organically kind of come up now as a way to maybe find the truth through a reward for somebody who has insider information, which I think is a fascinating just concept to think about.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting concept, but this is also the same guy, like at the end of an investor call, just rattled off, like 40 mention market. Remember that? I think that was Brian Armstrong, where he was like pony, white horse, like he just rattled 40 things off as he signed off. So there has to probably be some clarity.
It's a fine line of like, like something like that where he knows he's hitting these things and his intern can get paid, or like, what song are the Philadelphia Eagles going to come out to in the Super Bowl, this year? And then like, the guy who's running the soundboard at the stadium knows it, type of thing. It's like, that's not information that we need to know. But then if you start getting to more serious things like election results or wars or things like that, then it is, I don't know if need to know is the right way to say it, but it's fair for the people to want to know the truth.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So it's just interesting to see how these prediction markets are disrupting technology, just like how crypto is disrupting the financial world. And you can see we've had like Polymarket, 2 billion, I think it was, from ICE, from the New York Stock Exchange's parent company. Now we have partnerships with the Dow Jones, the Wall Street Journal. What this goes to show us is that there's just major demand and desire behind the truth and behind this data. These companies want it. They see the value in it. So this is why I'm convinced prediction markets aren't going to go anywhere. And there might be some structuring that needs to be settled in some, safe walls put into place, but prediction markets aren't going anywhere. I think they're going to thrive in 2026. And even to the point where it's actually changed my investing, TiVo, to a small point. Like we'll have these upcoming ICOs, and you could put money towards the ICO, or you could go over to Polymarket and you could put a small wager in on where you think the FDV or the total commits are going to be for those ICOs. Or if you don't want to put the wager in, you could at least get more information from people that are probably committing money to the ICO, where they like those prices to go by their actions on Polymarket, to see where they think the total commits are going to go, where the FDV is going to open at. So it's just a wealth of information, not just in the financial markets and the real estate markets and culture. It's everything. So it's definitely a rabbit hole that I keep going down pretty hard. I know it's something we talk about all the time on the rundown. I mean, we were talking about Polymarket before Polymarket was like really a thing early on in this show. I was like, credit
to us. Credit to us. And
I'd
say credit to you more than anybody, though. You were the first. You were the first one. You really were, Brian.
Yeah, I like some degenerate worlds. Once it starts popping up on my timeline, meme coins, prediction market edges, and I try to get as much truthful data as possible. And I try to digest it so I can digest it to our community, because I need to understand it to help people out. And there's just a plethora of information out there. And in one site that I go to consistently is Polymarket, to just get for a vibe on where markets are going. And it's not always 100% right. I'm not wagering a ton on there, but I certainly go there daily. And now the Dow Jones and Wall Street Journal definitely likes where we're headed as well.
Yeah, I mean, where else can you get action on the Delaware Blue Hens at 3 p.m. on what was it, Wednesday afternoon in San Diego, California? There's nowhere else in the world other than the prediction markets. That's for damn sure. But speaking of ICOs, you got one you wanted to talk about there, or Trove?
Oh yeah, Trove markets. I just was going to make a call because I actually opened today. This is not an endorsement for anybody to dive into it or invest in it, but we were talking about Polymarket, and there's some interesting ICOs popping out. This is kind of the real world assets. They're actually like a market for like real world assets or collectibles where you can get exposure to like a Pokemon index or Birkin bag index. So these collectibles or like real world assets that you maybe aren't buying or you're not able to buy, but now it trades, like you can trade up to 10x leverage on where you think those markets are going to go. They have an interesting ICO popping up. I honestly, let everybody kind of do their own research on it and what they think of it. But I was actually following this on Polymarket on their ICO ticker of like what the FDV was going to open at and the total commits. But, it's just, an interesting ICO that's popping up. And there's a lot of really good ICOs we've talked about within our private community. We've talked about at Crypt Nation. So just excited to see that there's still people building and developing products out there that just aren't cookie cutter like L2s. People are really thinking outside of the box and making cool stuff.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, again, Momentum Moneymakers, check the link out for a $1 trial if you want to be kind of kept in the know when it comes to, all the different ICOs and all the different momentum plays, whether it's NFTs or meme coins that Brian and Joe are doing. That was a spirited conversation, 1 hour on the dot, Brian. I told you when I saw that sheet, I said, I think this one's an hour. I think it's an hour, and it certainly was. And it was really fun. So really appreciate everybody. If you're on the back end of this and haven't yet, please give the video a like. If you're new here, please subscribe. And again, check out the $1 trial for Momentum Moneymakers. We really appreciate you all listening. Look out in the YouTube community. I'll try to get a schedule out for our live streams next week. As always, we appreciate everybody being here. Enjoy the weekend.